Hello everyone and welcome back to F124 for pre-season testing for Season 3 of the Driver Career Mode. Yes, we're back in Bahrain this weekend for winter testing to talk about all of the teams, all of their preparation, and of course all of the driver transfer news. And Red Bull were one of the big talking points of 2024 Season 2, with Max Verstappen obviously claiming his 5th world title in a row, and Sergio Perez alongside him staggeringly, has kept his seat. Yes, the Red Bull team felt, despite a late season collapse and not renewing his contract until the winter break, that Sergio Perez was still a good enough driver to serve alongside Max Verstappen, and ultimately, who can really blame them? Red Bull obviously won both world titles last year once again. Perez spent pretty much all season in P2 until a late charge by Ferrari and Charles Leclerc allowed the monogas driver to jump him at the end of the season. And yeah, Max Verstappen, he still dominated the world title, wrapped it up with a good 3 or 4 rounds to go. So he seems quite happy having Checo alongside him. Maybe the Dutchman still wants a driver that he can just keep at arm's length way at the end of a campaign as well. So yeah, Red Bull seemingly quite happy, and if winter testing pace is anything to go by, they are still the team to beat. Yes, it looks very, very close between them, McLaren and Ferrari in terms of raw performance, but Red Bull, yeah, fastest in winter testing. Max Verstappen 6/10 clear of anybody else with his fastest lap come the end of the week there. So yeah, very, very good job done by the Dutchman. Could he make it a record-breaking 6th world title in a row? Only time will tell this season. But yeah, like we said, you know, Ferrari, McLaren, they now seem to have a car that can fight right from the get-go, and hopefully that will mean that we have a fight on our hands over the course of this campaign. And of course, the second team then we have got to discuss is Ferrari, and I am happy to confirm right now they have got a new driver lineup. Yes, Charles Leclerc, of course, stays with the team. Ferrari's darling. Would we expect any different inside F124? But they've got a new face alongside him, and that is me. Yes, we have signed with Ferrari, I think for the first time ever in one of these series. We've raced for the Maranello-based squad, and hopefully between us and Charles, we're going to be able to take the fight to Red Bull over the course of the campaign as well. Like we said, you know, winter testing pace looked pretty good. We were, I believe, 2nd and 3rd on the board, but yeah, Max Verstappen 6/10 clear of anybody else at the end, but we were trying to hide a little bit of our pace come the end of the week there, and with some new rule changes for Season 3 as well, hopefully it's going to mean that Ferrari are going to be able to stay close to Red Bull early on, because often what we find is that Red Bull really develop a car very strong throughout the first half of the year. Basically, mathematically, wrap up the title. No one really sensibly believes they've got a chance to fight them, and then obviously they kind of cool off for the second half of the year and focus on next year's car. Season 1, it didn't work very well. They almost bottled the world title. Season 2, it was a bit more comfortable, and Max Verstappen able to maintain winning form right through towards the end of the campaign. But like we said, you know, Ferrari and Charles Leclerc, that 4-race dominant spell towards the end of the campaign really was something that we haven't seen before from any other driver other than Verstappen on this game. So maybe, just maybe, Fred Vasseur is cooking behind the scenes, and ourselves alongside Charles Leclerc has got to be the strongest lineup on the grid in recent times. Mercedes, though, interestingly, were another team that came sniffing around at the end of the year. Whether they're worried about Hamilton retiring or George Russell isn't going to be able to fill his shoes at the Brackley-based squad, yeah, Mercedes did actually send over an offer my way, but of course, we weren't really interested in that. You know, we were always looking to race for Ferrari, and honestly, based on winter testing pace, that seems like a pretty good idea. Mercedes seem to have dropped back from the big 3 teams. They have kept their driver lineup of Lewis Hamilton and George Russell, though, ready for another campaign. So clearly, both Brits still feel that they are capable and willing to deliver in, you know, higher up the grid machinery, but ultimately, you know, they just haven't quite been able to really fine-tune these ground effect era cars like we've seen, you know, with Red Bull. Now we're starting to see with McLaren and Ferrari as well. You know, they've been able to take a couple of wins over the last couple of years. Hamilton really did struggle, though, towards the end of last year's campaign. There were far too many races where he took grid penalties and just wasn't able to make his way back up through the field as Grand Prix went on. So yeah, Mercedes will be looking to try and, you know, really just figure out what's going on. But then again, how many times have we said that over the course of this game before? George Russell, though, obviously was able to get the jump on Hamilton in the very last race of the year last season to finish out top of those two once again. Hamilton, up to that point, did seem to be delivering a little bit more as the season went on. But yeah, once more, it is a question of what if for Mercedes and whether they can really try and fight towards the front of the championship order. The same can be said for McLaren. Last year, the start of the campaign was an absolute disaster. Lando Norris unable to finish the first 3 Grand Prix with 3 separate mechanical failures, and that did really handicap them throughout the rest of the campaign because they knew grid penalties were going to be a problem and everything like that. Once again, you would argue McLaren probably have the best future-proof lineup. Maybe now Ferrari is a good threat to that as well, but Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris once again staying with that team. Obviously, they did get a 1-2 in the last race weekend of the year, and they did look right on pace with Ferrari in winter testing as well. So maybe they can carry that momentum into Season 3 of this series. Maybe, just maybe, this is going to be the year that we see McLaren as a proper, fully fledged title threat right the way through the campaign as well there. Oscar Piastri going from strength to strength, took that first win at the Japanese Grand Prix early on in the season. Lando Norris, 2 wins back-to-back at the end of the season as well. So if anybody is going to be able to fight within that organisation, then surely it is going to be him. We saw at the end of Season 1, Max Verstappen even able to get that first win in the second half of the campaign, carried that momentum into Season 2. Could we see Lando Norris and McLaren do the same thing here as we head into Season 3? They have, on paper, actually come into this season only just with the strongest car on the grid, and as we mentioned with some of the new rule changes, that might play really, really pivotal over the course of the year. The FIA really trying to curb development and obviously costs within the teams as well there, so we're going to start seeing less kind of momentum building throughout the season, which will hopefully increase the competition as well up and down the order. Aston Martin, though, really have been a bit of a disappointing story so far inside F124. No wins last year after Fernando Alonso took a historic win in Season 1. Of course, he was actually able to get a couple of wins on the board throughout that first season, but ultimately they fell away from the Big Four teams and almost fell behind Haas come the end of the year there. Obviously, it was basically a battle between Fernando Alonso and myself throughout that second campaign, as Lance Stroll and Nico Hülkenberg did their best to score as few points as they possibly could. Unfortunately, Hülkenberg did a better job of scoring less points than Stroll did. I think it was 33 in the end to the Canadian against Hülkenberg's 0. Which did then mean that Aston Martin were able to just pip us come the end of the season by a couple of points there as well, which was a little bit of a shame, admittedly. But, that's kind of what happens sometimes in Formula 1. And, hopefully this year we could try and see the Haas team maybe continue to fight the Aston Martin squad. I'm really hoping that we have left Haas in a good place inside this series. Of course, obviously, leaving them, going to Ferrari. I didn't kind of want to completely leave them in the dark. I wanted to try and make sure that they had some kind of fighting chance. And now we had left the organisation. But yeah, once again, Aston Martin, to the surprise of nobody, Stroll has stayed on, but he is still joined by Fernando Alonso. Clearly, the Aston Martin man believes he has still got the pace to fight in Formula 1 as well. And that is going to be interesting to see how he gets on this year as Aston Martin just continue to slowly drift backwards. If ever you're going to have a driver that can drag everything out of a midfield car, it is always going to be Fernando Alonso at the end of the day. Then moving, though, to my former team in a bid to try and maintain some kind of stability within the organisation, despite how just terrible he was over the course of last year. Nico Hülkenberg has once again kept his seat and will be staying with the American outfit once more. But he obviously has a new teammate this year, and that comes in the form of Pierre Gasly. Yes, a very, very interesting kind of sidestep by the Frenchman. Apparently it was quite a big money offer to head over to the Haas team, as there were many rumours that, it could be an Ollie Behrman that makes the step up into Formula 1 with the team there, maybe as the next kind of Ferrari hope in the future. Nope, they've decided to kind of go their own way this year, and yeah, Pierre Gasly has joined the outfit as well, though. So 2 drivers that, on their day, have really been able to deliver magnificent results in midfield machinery. This year, though, we'll wait and see as to how we get on. Winter testing pace didn't look incredible. They looked to be about where they were come the end of last season. You know, there's only so much I can do with that team, obviously leaving them at the end of the campaign. You know, I would wish, obviously, once you had kind of the new rule changes confirmed, I could have gone and spent all of the R&D before I went to Ferrari. But of course, obviously, you signed the contract before the next season begins. So unfortunately, I had to leave the team with all of my R&D still intact. I haven't spent it, though, on the Ferrari car, is the other important thing as we head into the new year. But hopefully, you know, Haas are going to be able to maintain their, you know, current status as best of the backmarkers, if you will. You know, we were so close to beating Aston Martin last season. I was gutted, ultimately, that we couldn't get the job done. But, you know, ultimately, I feel most of that blame lies with Nico Hülkenberg. So how they'll get on this year is anybody's guess, of course. With Pierre Gasly leaving the team, though, that meant, obviously, that Alpine had some shoes to fill as well. And that's where Yuki Tsunoda comes in. Yes, the man that I replaced at Ferrari. We've kind of seen a bit of a triangular swap around between the three organisations. Yuki Tsunoda has found himself at the French-based squad. Is kind of obviously, you know, he was half expecting to get out, despite how good he was towards the end of last campaign. He got 4 podiums in 5 races late on in the year, but ultimately, you know, Ferrari, they're a team that can command any driver they feel like, and luckily this time round, we were the driver that they were interested in, ready for Season 3. Like I said, you know, all the hype, all the talk last year had been about us hopefully getting that Ferrari seat. I did admittedly get very, very nervous towards the end of the campaign that Ferrari weren't then going to sign me. They were just going to keep Yuki Tsunoda inside the organisation. It did give them a lot of bargaining power with me, I will admit. Obviously, it meant that they were able to, you know, lowball me a little bit, because obviously they could have quite happily turned around and kept Yuki on for another year. But obviously, yeah, we've replaced Yuki at Alpine. Yuki has replaced Gasly at Alpine. We've replaced Yuki at Ferrari. Yuki's replaced Gasly at Alpine, and obviously Gasly has replaced myself at Haas. So yeah, nice little 3-way swap there between all of the drivers, and yeah, really giving us some interesting driver moves as we head down into the future. Of course, it is nice to slowly see how these timelines transform inside F124, and luckily as well, a couple of our backmarket teams have hired junior drivers as well, which is always exciting to see, because ultimately, you know, occasionally you'll head into a new year and nothing has changed at all. And I'm happy that doesn't seem to be the case inside F124. Speaking of which, the first of those teams is Williams. Yes, Logan Sargent has unfortunately been dropped. All the speculation ended up being true come the end of last season. The American driver, unfortunately, given no more opportunities with the Williams team after a pointless campaign over the course of last year. Of course, Alex Albon continues to kind of be, you know, who they're willing to put all of their hope into and hopefully develop that team back into a formidable frontrunner in the future. And he is joined up by British F2 driver in Ollie Bearman. Yes, finally, Bearman is going to get the call up in Formula 1. Like I said, I thought he might end up being our replacement down at Haas. I think Haas had kind of hoped that would be the case as well, but he had already signed a deal with the Williams team to get himself into a Formula 1 race seat. Ultimately, you know, he didn't want to run the risk of Ferrari keeping Yuki, me then staying at Haas, and then him ending up being left nowhere, so he kind of took matters into his own hand and will be joining Alex Albon at the Williams team. Of course, this first year is going to be about learning, is going to be about development. Obviously, we saw how much time Logan Sargent was given with the Williams organisation as well, so hopefully, obviously, Bearman will be better than that, but you know, he might be given sort of a season to kind of embed himself, integrate and work himself out, and then obviously in the future, you know, might be able to, you know, if we see Williams suddenly make a leap forward or something like that in this series, then hopefully we're going to see the Bearman there doing the job as well. I'm intrigued to see how he's going to stack up against Alex Albon as the season goes on. Williams, I think, is going to be one to watch. Ultimately, winter testing pace didn't look incredible, but I think, yeah, now they have really got what has a potentially massive skill ceiling in terms of a driver lineup there. Moving on, though, down to VCARB, of course, both drivers gutted and apparently very upset with the fact that Sergio Perez did end up keeping his seat come the end of last year. Of course, Carlos Sainz left a rather cushy job down at Ferrari to come to VCARB for 1 year, kind of sacrificing a year of his Formula 1 campaign. Of course, we all know just, you know, how little time unless your name's Fernando Alonso, drivers potentially get in the world of Formula 1. So it was a big, big gamble by Carlos Sainz, and ultimately doesn't seem to be paying off just yet there. But, you know, if there's Red Bull known for one thing, it's having rather deep pockets. So yeah, Sainz and Ricciardo apparently on incredibly lucrative deals to stay in the B team car. And once again, obviously that promise still lies. If Sergio Perez isn't delivering well enough, then one of those two drivers could get the call up to Red Bull. And if anybody was guessing, if I was a betting man, I'd say Sainz is probably still the one that is likely to get that call up as we head into the future there. Daniel Ricciardo, he did deliver. It seemed, though, that generally Sainz was just that little bit better. It was more often than not that the Spaniard was getting the better of his Australian counterpart and often just delivering a little bit more. Of course, they both had some quite historic results over the course of the year. VCARB was kind of that other team alongside Haas that occasionally could bring the fight to the big runners. So it'll be interesting to see how development works by them over the course of the year. But ultimately, Carlos Sainz, Daniel Ricciardo, well over 300 race starts between them. Is it really a rookie team? Is it really a young driver development team? I don't really know anymore. And the last team, but not least then, of course, is Kick Sauber Formula 1. Of course, I still talk about it all the time, but it's quite painful for them getting that huge performance downgrade. Kind of actually, I think, screws over them completely now throughout the rest of the game, because ultimately now their performance is always going to be lower than everybody else's unless they can get like some engine regs nailed or something like that. Kevin Magnussen obviously got dropped for myself at Haas, took a year out, then joined Kick Sauber, and has been dropped by them once again there because they have signed F2 vice champion, wasn't it, back in 2023. The man that obviously finished second to Teo Pourchaire is Fred Vesti. I don't quite know how Sauber's junior driver didn't get the call up, but apparently they went behind his back and hired the man that came second to him over the course of last year there. So we've ended up with a Ferrari junior in a Mercedes-powered car, and we've ended up with a Mercedes junior in a Ferrari-powered car, because this is F124, and that's just the kind of thing that happens inside this game as well there. But yeah, Fred Vesti, another very, very hot prospect, of course, the second rookie on the grid. He'll immediately be wanting to try and get the jump on Zhou Guanyu, who apparently is still pumping that team with lots and lots of money towards, you know, at this stage of his Formula 1 career. Ultimately, you know, I don't think it's ever going to be a shock if Zhou gets dropped. He obviously had a pointless campaign as well over the course of last year, but Hulkenberg did the same, and he was still able to keep his seat there. So Zhou Guanyu kept on once again, maybe just in a bid to maintain some stability, but I'm not really sure why Magnussen got dropped and he didn't. But of course, yeah, we all know money was the answer to that. And there we go. That is all of our driver transfer and different team news. Of course, 5 teams with a changed lineup from last year, but obviously 5 teams on the other side of that that have maintained their lineup. It seems like there is a little bit of reliable movement inside this game, but not too many dramatic twists so far inside F124. Obviously, we've done another of the career mode kind of perk changes as well, and this time around we have gone with chip shortage, so that means that every team is only allowed 1 upgrade a month inside this game as well. So that's hopefully going to mean that the field is going to stay more bunched together. Hopefully could potentially harm Red Bull as well. Like we said, you know, they're able to develop a car really, really aggressively throughout the first half of the season. That's not going to happen anymore as we head into the new campaign as well. They're so very, very excited to see how things are going to work out. Also, exciting news. Portugal is back on the F1 calendar. It has replaced COTA for this year. Apparently there is a new kind of potential contract clause that has come in place that means Miami and COTA have to swap who gets a weekend each year, obviously because both tracks have a sprint weekend. So Portugal is going to be returning. It does also mean that we have 1 less sprint weekend throughout the course of this campaign, so we are back down to 5, ready for Season 3 of this series. But thank you all so much for watching this video. Let me know who you are going to be rooting for down in the comments below. I can't wait to represent the red shirt as well as we head into the new campaign. So yeah, thank you all so much for watching, and I will leave you guys with kind of the weird little driver preview interview little thing they give on this game.